The Amtgard V9 committee just dropped a huge video. Today, I'm going over it with the newly dubbed Sir Lao Tzu the Builder. Let's get to it.
Here we go. We're gonna stop every single slide.
Thanks.
All right.
Hi everyone, I'm Cord. Not only am I a member of the V9 team, but
I appreciate Cord for what he's doing here. The fact, like what he'll talk about here in a second. I was on V8 and I'm here to try and fix it in V9. Like, I respect someone that's willing to go through this grueling process twice. Like,
agreed.
Props, huge
and
props.
being willing to bring the experience.
Well, and being able to say, hey,
again.
we got some stuff wrong.
Yep.
Like that takes a big. That not all Amtgarders would be able to do that, I think.
I also had the privilege of being one of the writers of the V8 rules of play. That experience allows me to provide insight into many of the design decisions that were made in V8, as well as some of the mistakes that we now have the opportunity to correct in V9.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the burning question on everyone's mind is this: what is the V9 committee planning to do with the new version?
Get rid of
magic. When the V8 team was writing the rules, there were a number of concepts that we introduced that the current team plans to either maintain or expand upon. Let's look at a few of those now. First, the core combat rules. The core combat rules will remain largely the same as what you're familiar with in V8. Mm-hmm. While there may be some minor updates and clarifications, ultimately, you can expect the same fast-paced combat you've come to know and love.
Good. Yep, huge plus. Huge plus to not switch that around, because everyone is used to the same stick tag, like game to game to game. It's what we've been doing forever. So leaving that by itself, like, fantastic, because it's only going to cause confusion to really change things around.
Well, and one of the things the same fast-paced combat you've come to know and love, that essentially is code for we're not going to add weight requirements. We're not going to, like, our speed tag version of foam fighting is going to stay the same in the rulebook,
which is good. It's iconic. Like, it differentiates ourselves between other groups, which is good. Like, it's good to have options out there, because you can always participate in both.
Yep. As a cross gamer, this is how it should be. Like, I love the other games, but this is one of the things that makes Amtgard so fun, and I'm glad they're keeping it.
Mm-hmm.
Next, weapon construction. Much of the feedback that we've received about weapon construction was related to weapon safety. As such, we're committing to improve weapon safety, with both archery and great weapon safety at the top of the list.
Yo,
I get
talk
archery,
about a hot button.
100%. If we adopted Dag Bell arrows tomorrow, I'd be so freaking happy. Like, man, our arrows are the most unsafe thing in our game.
You are going to get so many inboxes about that statement right there.
It's true. I mean, like, I have had 2 injuries in my 10 years, 11 years or whatever it's been of playing Amtgard. Both of them have been related to getting hit in the face with arrows. Like, it is by far, I would rather get hit in the face full draw with a Dag arrow than in the chest with an Amtgard arrow.
I wouldn't go that far.
I would. 100% I would. I don't mind getting shot in the face at all in Dag Bell, even if it's close. Like, it doesn't, their arrow construction is so much better than ours.
Yeah.
How about so much safer? I wouldn't say better. Our arrows are better, but they are significantly less safe.
That is going to always just be the biggest can of worms, because there are people that will die on that hill saying that arrow construction in Amtgard is safer if it's done right. And of course, that's always going to be a caveat, because not everyone does things correctly. But I mean, whether we adopt a certain style similar to Dag, Bell, anything else, or maintain our own, or do something, like it's going to have an element of danger. I mean, both of us know someone in our kingdom who lost an eye to not even the arrowhead at all. Like, it was like, I think, like, the fletchings, like, just scratched their eye out, sort of thing. Like, and it's good that they realize, like, hey, this is going to be a thing that we have to pay attention to, because no matter what happens, like, we're flinging things in the air at pretty quick paces. Some bad things are going to happen, and at some point you're just going to say, yeah, this is a part of the game, and encourage everyone to have safety glasses, sort of thing. I mean, Which I mean,
Yeah.
admittedly, we should all have some sort of eye protection. Like that would
Probably be
increase the
better.
safety of the game tons. Eye protection and helmet, but yeah, like when it comes down to it, like it's too established. There's no way we're going to be able to get rid of something like that. I would be very interested to see how they're going to go with weapon construction because it's a heated battle. 100%.
I'm interested. What can you do to make great weapons more safe? Because personally, right, add more half padding, it's not going to do anything. Dag Bell has 2/3 have to be padded, and their weapons still hit harder than ours. Okay, we have to add squishier foam on the stab tip. Well, that doesn't necessarily fix the murder strikes or the like. I don't know what we could do other than getting rid of great weapons to make them safer.
A couple things come to mind. One, like in general, like having these incremental fixes, yeah, it might not solve things completely, but it helps. So it's a good to have some of those just little steps. Just for example, the squishier foam on the tip, something like that. We'll just arbitrarily jump on that. Like, it's like I know a certain person who's in this chat that's not myself. That one of the only times I've ever been laid out was a stab by a great pole, and I was out for like a battle game sort of thing. And it's just because the stab tip was just too hard and it was just straight to the gut sort of thing. And I just got laid out. And it's understandable because like things happen in the field. Like it's a contact game. We're not a lightest touch. So like there's going to be some of that. But like, we'll just say like if there was a squishier tip or a wider tips, arbitrarily just throwing some things out, not necessarily getting caught down the example, like the moment of impact is either spread over a longer time or a wider surface area sort of thing. So like you're reducing the deceleration. That's
yes and no, because I don't feel like our speed poles are necessarily the issue. Like even it's our
big war poles that knock people out.
Exactly. It's the big war. So maybe it's we put a weight limit on, not a weight minimum, but a weight limit on poles.
Yeah, a weight limit, or even, and I mean, I know we've talked about this sort of things, like no more crushing breaking. Like just make crushing break if it's over. Gosh, and here come like, talk about a can of worms. Like anything from X feet to X feet is a great sword, and it is slashing and piercing and can do this, and anything above this range can do this. But like essentially, like limiting the, like if it's over a certain length, it has certain properties, crushing, breaking, what have you, just inherently without actually having to add a ton of mass. Because me and Varro were say what?
Oh, go ahead.
I was like, yeah, me and Varro were talking about it. Like if you construct a speed pole with crushing, breaking, like it is extremely negligible weight change compared if you're making it just a speed pole. Like it is the non-uniform cross section, so it's not a big circle. You have the extra little bit of padding to get to the long enough cross section. Negligible amount of weight. However, that rule does inherently make some people add crazy ton amounts of weight on the end of it, and that amount of mass on a long lever arm is just going to knock you out, sort of thing.
It's the band shop war poles that are the issue, not the bamboo speed poles that are min-max to be a crushing breaking.
And though, like the only issue you have with like speed poles or headshots, but you had the same thing with a single short sort of thing. But yeah, like whenever you start getting things so massive on that long of a lever arm, like you're just crushing people, sort of thing. So, one thought is like, all right, you don't have the thickness requirement on crushing breaking, but at the same time, if your pole is 20 foot long and you only have standard padding, like you're just getting hit by like a band shot pole at that point. So it's tough. I know some people.
I could see potentially doing like anything over 8 foot or 10 foot is stab only.
Exactly.
And then you could kind of get into some different things like that, because I don't think most 6 to 8 foot just normal poles, most stabs aren't necessarily always the issue. They can be. I think the ones that most people get hurt on are going to be these wide sweeping, arcing, heavy, or the stabs with the big war poles. like the band shop massive, I'm going to move your body type of shots, which
it's just a physics equation. Like
Mhm.
if you have a bigger long pole, you're not getting as much like momentum behind it. A stab is like, it has weight that you're stopping with like your chest or whatever, but not nearly as much as whenever people throw in a full swing sort of thing, or bring down its weight on top of you. And that's always just going to kind of crush somebody. But I mean, at some point, if it gets heavy enough, a stab is going to kind of cave you in.
And so my bamboo speed poles, I get as many complaints about like my downward stabs, especially when people are like legged and I'm poking around on the shield with my speed pole as I do my band shop war pole. And hey, maybe that's me fighting wrong, but like, I don't know if there's much that we can do on the weapon construction side. There are minor things. I don't know if there's a lot that we can do on the weapon construction side that's going to make significant safety impacts without major rules changes that aren't on the construction side.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Like it's going to have to be if you're over 10, 12 foot or whatever, it's stab only or something like that. If you're wanting to make a major change sort of thing. Like you leave it as it is and it's as it is and we're just dealing with the same stuff. But if you're wanting to make that big change, it's going to have to be something like that, because like changing the foam density and things like that, like it's like, yes, that does help, but it is also like a drop in the bucket whenever you're dealing with like that amount of force.
If we got to the point, I would hate it because it's my favorite way to fight. But if you told me, Godric, we are removing pole arms, anything over 6 foot, we're no longer allowing in our game because they are unsafe, I would be upset because it's my favorite way to fight, but I would completely understand it from a safety aspect. Same thing with archery. If you came to me and said there's no feasible way to make this safe, we're removing them, I wouldn't enjoy it, but for the safety of the game, it wouldn't rock my world as much as what I think some people think it would.
It wouldn't rock your world.
Pole is my main way to fight.
Yeah, but that's like one battle game every 3 events. So
yeah. I would put the pole, if they said nothing over 6 feet for safety reasons, I would be okay with that. And I know a lot of people wouldn't be, because that changes what they've spent money on and all of that. I don't think, last point, and we can move on from this, I don't think arrows how about this? Arrows can be fixed through construction rules. Great weapons can't. Great weapons are going to have to be major rules changes, not construction changes.
Yeah, if they're going to make a big difference and a big change on that, like I don't think we can get rid of either of them. It's too much of a cultural staple. Pillar. There we go. A pillar of our culture and the way these games play. And I wouldn't even advocate for getting rid of them. But yeah, change, like, yes, archery construction can make things a little bit better, but just great weapons are going to be interesting. Like they're going to be real interesting. The idea of rules bloat versus safety and things like that. Well, so we'll see. Good luck, V19.
Yeah, have fun.
Now, on to one of the more contentious topics, armor. Given the breadth of opinion and feedback we've received, there's a lot about armor that's still on the table. However, there are a few things that we are committing to. First, we will be retaining a multi-point rating system and segmented armor values.
Agree or disagree?
Agree.
I agree too.
Yep, agree.
I would be okay with changing segmented, as in I'm okay with arms being different from your torso. I would be okay if they changed it. I hate the averaging of 4 points here, 2 points here equals that. Yeah. Like that's complicated to me.
Yeah. But, and one of the next points does do that. But as far as like just our game, the way the rules are, we have to maintain things segmented. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, me too. This is good point.
However, we will be making the armor construction rules more forgiving than what they are in V8.
Agree or disagree?
80% agree.
Same.
There are some things that are, I mean, one of the elephants in the room is gonna be things like shark mail, that can slide under the radar and get a lot of points for not like really any like hampering compared to what you're getting out of it. But then there's like other things like plate armor and things like that. It's like you have the back of your arm as a gambeson. It's like, well, now you have a half point on your whole arm.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
full plate sort of thing.
The thing I'm worried about with this is I'm not a huge fan of the foam like EVA cosplay armor in our game because I feel like it just gets beat up too much and I'm gonna feel terrible breaking some kid's EVA cosplay armor that he spent 40 hours making. But if they come in and just say, oh yeah, foam plastide dipped armor is gonna be 2 points of armor, 3 points of armor.
Sorry, 2, but yeah.
It's already 2?
I think so.
I think synthetics are limited to 1, aren't they?
I thought there was the change. I remember either the talk about it or there's the change.
Okay. It could be, but
it was maybe just the talk about it because talking to some of the rules rep and seeing where it's potentially going to be sort of thing. I'm fine. So this was something I used to be on the opposite side of the fence. I used to be on the opposite side of like the foam armor being like able to get 2 points, for example. Yeah, because me and Varl have talked about it. And the more you think about it, I'll speak for myself. The more I think about it, like if it encourages people to go out and build armor, buy armor, do whatever, and really get into it, that is a better thing for the game. And they're wearing armor as opposed to just like, hey, give me Lycan, for example.
100%. I agree with that. The more armor we get on the field, the better the game looks, and the more people will want to play it.
Agreed. So like as someone who has lamb and plate armor, like
and shark mail,
you have shark mail. don't cough at me. It's like as someone who has like some of the heavier armors, and I want to be like, they're not comparable. Like if you do a linear scale of weight versus armor values, it's not even close. Like that's.
And here's the thing.
It's a lot of wind, man. Like we don't need to. It's like we need to encourage people to want to play the game and be fancy and have fun. It's a game at the end of the day.
I don't even care honestly about the weight per point ratio. I personally care more about the cost per point ratio. And so, like back in the day, V7, my fighting company we min-max rules and we're able to get leather to be like 4 points, and that was super cheap for us at the time compared to certain things. And being able to get, if I am able to get an armor rating that is $10 a point compared to plate, which is $40 a point or whatever, that cost per point ratio is a bigger deal for me than the weight per point is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get you 100%. And there's going to be some people that fight you on that plate, but I mean, that's trees versus forest. I get you 100%. Opening up like synthetic materials, like let's say just like synthetic lamb, like doing plastic, like SCA plates and things like that, making it more accessible. I'm a fan of. Me too. I really am.
Well, SCA plates like that are still expensive. It's still, it's
but you
still
get what I'm saying. We'll say
still 75 cents a plate or whatever. Yeah. Pickle barrel. Yeah.
So like making armor more accessible and making it actually like people wanting to like build a persona and garb and a look on it. Like before I didn't want to do it because like as someone that owns armor, like I want to complain and rabble rouse about everything. But at the end of the day, it's a little selfish and it's a little bit, if you ask me, it's a little bit short-sighted because like people are going to be doing this foam armors. Like, yeah, now they're actually going out and putting armor on and enjoying it on the field. The only issue I see with that is whenever you get into like certain like foam armor that you can't tell is garb or not. But when we get that problem with Gambesons as is, so like that's just part of like the beast sort of thing, and that's okay.
The issue for me with that is, and the foam armor is the big one for me, right? I can go down and get blue foam and take $5 of foam and $5 of spray plastide dip. And if that's worth the same point value as like hardened leather, there's no reason to buy or make hardened leather anymore. Because
with the current rule system, it would like, because you're going to get like knockoff on construction, like inferior construction and things like that. But I get your point.
Potentially, dude. I mean, you've got plastide dip artists that can make some sick stuff.
All right, so that's different. That's different. You're like at that point there is a significant investment into time and skill, and I'm completely fine with that. And I'm also completely fine with someone like just duct taping the blue foam and getting 1 point on their arm, sort of thing. Like it's a gateway armor, probably. It's like if you're willing to like get some of these EVA foam, like super cool bracers or things like that you can get online, like maybe you'll eventually get some plate armor or make your own lamb or something like that. So yeah, it does kind of hurt for, again, like I'm guilty of this. Like it's like, yeah, you spent a lot of money in the past on this sort of thing, but hear me out. Like, is it worth hurting everyone in the future because you did something in the past?
So I'm not particularly worried about the things I already own.
Okay.
I am worried about, from the competitive standpoint, we get a V9 rule committee, or they come out with new armor rules, and my fighting company takes a look, and we will min-max the heck out of this because that's who we are. And you're telling me the lightest armor for the least amount of money that we can spam onto 10 of our guys is not going to be healthy for the game compared to, like, for instance, right? If I have to spend $400 to get plate right now compared to 400 hours of making it, that's okay. I'm okay with those ratios. That's whatever, arbitrarily, those are fine. But if you tell me I can go and make 2-point armor in 20 minutes in my basement, we're doing that. We're spamming that all over the place, and that is going to become the overpowered meta, and it's not going to look as good, but it's going to take over because it's what's best. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I get what you're saying, but the same thing can be said, like the new player who's 3 weeks in is super excited about making PVC weapons and things like that is going to go and do kind of the same thing, and now it enables them to be able to do that. They no longer have that cost of entry. And I don't think that these groups are just going to constantly be walking around in just that. It's like, yeah, maybe this one, like maybe Bridge Wars, everyone looks super goofy and has
all to win.
Yeah, all this silly stuff. I would go so far as to say I think that's making a little bit of a mountain out of a molehill. It's something to consider. However, like, most people do want to look fly whenever they go out in the field. So like, even if they are going to like do kind of like weight price point sort of thing, they're still maybe going to like take the time to make it look good sort of thing. And that's fine. It's the sort of things like, if you, it's really interesting on game theory, especially when it comes to video games, but because at least that's more like culturally prevalent sort of things. Like if you balance everything around this, like the leading edge of the competitive scene, that is not the balance on the rest of the 95% of the game.
Yep.
Are
we balancing for silver players? Or are we balancing for pro play?
Something like that. Yeah. So we'll never know. Like, neither of us know the answer to this. I personally don't think it is going to be a factor that's going to be in the long run bad for players, because you're going to get some people walking out on the flyest, like Arthas cosplay sort of armor stuff. There is a worry. So you raise a good point. It's like, I would be worried of hitting the armor and breaking it, but like, you have to understand that going into it sort of thing. I know it's still going to cause fights, but wouldn't it be dope to see someone do that?
It would be. I would love to come out and see like a full like Garen style or World of Warcraft style armor in the foam. I think that stuff would look really cool.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many fights that's going to make it through, and the blue foam underneath isn't going to start showing through, and then it starts to look bad. Yeah,
and you're right. I think the culture, a certain culture would develop around it. Like, at first, we'd probably see a lot of like degrading materials and things like that. But eventually, I think you would see like the armor meta or something like that would be like, all right, we need to develop more like strategic, long-term durable techniques sort of thing. You're still going to get somebody that just pays a cosplay designer to make them armor, and it's going to go out and break. That's really unfortunate, but the same thing can be said about a lot of garb and things like that. Like, there are going to be some sort of like unfortunate casualties, but I think it enables a lot into the game. Like, just like kind of what you're saying is like, if someone walks out with some super cool like Elder Scrolls, sort of
glass,
like
the glass armor from Elder Scrolls. Or
exactly something like
Yeah.
that. Wouldn't
be
that just
sick.
be sick? Like
That'd be
it'd
so
be
cool.
the coolest thing.
Yep. The more armor that we can get on the field, I think we need to. That's a benefit, and anything rules change wise that we can do to get more armor on the field, I think will benefit the game in the long
Agreed.
run.
And that fixes so like it'll have fringe kind of benefits as well. Like if I'm just going to pull a number out, like 30% more people are wearing like actual armor, there's going to be 30% less people are trying to get magic enchants, sort of thing. So it is a fringe like buff, or I guess nerf to enchantments, for example.
Perfect.
So,
more things to nerf the casters. It's what we need. That's what we need.
Get out of here, Godric.
I'm gonna hit play because we're
As
well as making it at least somewhat easier to get class max values for all classes.
All right, pause it. All right, dude. I don't think we're gonna fight on this actually. I think we've held our tongues a lot on bickering. Like you guys don't understand. We fight constantly. It doesn't stop. Like I don't know if we've ever sat down once and just been like, you know what? The whole time we're just right there. Got you, bud. Yep. But I think we're on the same page on this.
And I invite this dude to come have dinner with my wife too, and he still argues with me the whole time. So we're
whole
good.
time.
Keep going.
Yep. And his wife is on my side.
She is most of the time. Yes.
Yeah. Like the whole time. It's not even. Well, it is every time.
They joke that their job is to keep me humble together. So go.
Yeah, and it's a full-time job. But anyway, max armor value.
What about it?
Keep it where it's at. Bring it down.
I am okay keeping it where it's at if we made the armor easier. I would prefer a 1, 2, 3 system. If we just had light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, because I think having 6 points is hard to keep track of. And I don't know if our game has a way to where we can buff the classes, the armor wearing classes enough to be able to remove 3 points of armor from them. If we can, that would be my ideal. Do like cloth 1 point, cloth and leather 1 point, chain and lamb 2 points, or maybe even lamb, whatever. And then
I'm on. So, and this is something that a lot of people hate. I think I would love to see the game balanced to the point where we could lower these armor values.
Agreed.
I mean, we can make a ton of jokes about different people we know that don't know how to count to 6, sort of thing. And I think it.
Well, and it's not even just that. It's 6 here, 6 here, 6 here. 6,
yeah.
Like.
Yep. So I would love to see a little bit of that, like pulling down. But you're right. Like to do that, you immediately have to nerf every other non-armor class.
Or buff the armor classes so much to where it's okay to pull most of their value away from them at that point.
Yeah, something like that.
I just don't know if you can. Like,
I unfortunately, I think that one turns into like you have to lean on mostly nerfs, sort of thing. Like it will be hard to strictly buff classes to be able to deal with that. I would love to see it, honestly. Like, it's like anytime I see the big points battles and things like that, I think of the lightning bolt. Lightner's like 10 damage, 10 damage, 10 damage of different games, sort of things. Like, how do you keep track of like all of that? Like 110 points of health, sort of thing, whenever someone's hitting you by 7s. And the same thing goes with that, like keeping track of like on the fly while you're getting hit by a crushing breaking pole. It's like, all right, that was 6, that was 5, that was 3, 0, dead. Like, and
just do 1, 2, 3. All weapons, no matter what, do 1 damage. Arrows do 2. Done.
Something like, and I would love to see it. But you're right, like it's going to be hard. It's going to be a very, very difficult sort of thing, because talk about like a cultural inertia that you're going to have to move on that.
Well, let me tell you what I don't want to see. I don't want to see more weapon types added like what Dag Bell has with piercing, single hand piercing, double hand piercing.
Agreed.
This is bludgeoning, this is slashing, this is blunt, this is all of that just adds more. If I get hit with a weapon in hand, it does a certain amount of damage. If I get hit with something maybe with 2 hands, maybe that could do a different one.
Yeah, like
anything more complicated than that.
Have 2 categories, sort of thing.
Yeah,
something like that. Like if it's a weapon, it's either this or this. I'm right there with you. Like it is. We have a lot of rules to keep track of right now, so adding more rules to it, it's a delicate balance.
And I'm not a huge fan of adding armor buffs. Like this type of armor negates this type of damage. Again,
talk about hot button issue, man.
But that's it's way too. We have so many things going on in our combat right now. If we can't keep track of the fireball that hit or that spell ball that hit me is red, how in the world? And I don't know what to do with it. Am I going to keep track of? Oh well, I have a Gambion that negates these 2 over here. But wait, was that this type of arrow or that throwy? Like. Way too complicated.
And like making some armor immune to certain things, I think and this is a personal thing, and hopefully this doesn't like end up like the V9 people are like, hey, how dare you say that? No, it's like I don't like certain armor types being immune to certain gameplay styles, because like that's too hard in the rock paper scissors category. Like it's the same thing that we're looking at, like the like point and kill you spells. They're not fun to deal with. And the same thing with I can't play like I'm walking around a small throne, or I'm walking around a large throne, I'm walking around with arrows or whatever. It's like I can't fight against that person now. And also just making certain armor types not count against certain things. It becomes complicated, and it just doesn't feel good for the person that is using the armor.
Okay, how many people do we know that run a Gambi with shoulder plates, with shoulder hips, and maybe some chain chest? We've got 3 different types of armor there, and if one's negates piercing with arrows, the other one negates thrown, and too complicated.
Yeah, and to me, it's also just a quality of life of people playing the game. Like it's not fun to have someone all of a sudden say like, hey, I can't fight you anymore. I just have to go somewhere else, sort of thing. Or it's like, oh, you are now like this armor. If you get hit by a bow now, you're just dead, sort of thing. Like it just doesn't count for a huge part of the game anymore.
Yep.
So it's tough. Like there's people fighting for both sides, so it's tough. I understand, and kind of what you're saying with like some of the stuff earlier is like if it changes, well, I'll be happy. No, well, I'll understand the argument. Yes.
Yep. It's not a hill to die on. It's not if this change happens that I'm quitting the game change.
Exactly. 100%. It's like, we'll be grumpy, but it's okay.
Yep.
Moving on to spells and abilities.
Here we go.
V8 introduced the concept of states and removed multiple instances of the same or similar effects and consolidated many of them together. We're committing to continuing the use of states in V9 and to further expand the number of states and standardized common effects.
Disagree there. We don't need more states.
I agree completely. Like it's
already too, not a fan.
Yeah. Where we're at, well, all right, it depends. I'd be interested in hearing what the states are. Like there could be some positive states.
Are we
that would
adding
be interesting.
1? Are we adding 1 or 5 or 15?
Like if you added, let's say you added a positive state, like super strong or something like that. Now your weapons are like crushing or something. So you know what? That doesn't sound terrible, sort of thing. Or you get what I'm saying. It's like a certain state, like I don't know. But adding more negative states, I would really have to hear it, because like,
what are we doing? Are we going to add blindness, deafness? I have to close my eyes and fight. Like, I'm not a fan of more negative states like that, because again, that's just another buff to casters that they don't need.
Yeah. I'd really have to see it. Because I guess, man, I'm just
unless
really
you do something, maybe you can add like something to scout or assassin that's like a poisoned state. I'm just thinking of what this could be, right? And if I'm poisoned, I have to walk or so,
exactly. Yeah, a slow. Sure.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be terrible. It's not game break. Like it's not going to contribute to like Frozen sort of thing. Frozen, it's not fun, but you have to just walk instead of run. You know what? Like you can play around that. Like it is completely fine. Or like, I don't know, like make fragile more of a thing, maybe, because it's not it's very underused, I guess, or it's not using a lot of mechanics. If you're like, so almost things like if you're going to add more states, actually make that a state sort of thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, man.
If I am not a fan of this one, but I got to see it before I hate on it too.
Agreed. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like right now, they're not bad. Like where they're at right now is like cursed, fine. Like not confusing. Frozen, not confusing. Stopped, not confusing. Stunned, not confusing. Like all in sub, not confusing. Like all these things aren't really confusing. The only time it does get confusing is like, does a certain spell work on this sort of state? Yeah. But that's always going to be a thing. It's mostly with in sub sort of deal. But like the idea that like we just inherently like both of us are very weary of this. Like what is the state? what is it exactly?
How many are we adding?
Like freak out, but I just slow is like the only one I'm not super afraid of. Just kind of spitballing off the top of our heads.
Or like maybe weak, you can't use two-handed weapons. But then again, we're just adding more complexity.
Yeah,
and I'm
not to like harp on the example, was like things that make it to where you can't. It was your complaint with like heat weapon earlier. It's like it's not fun whenever you're saying, hey, you can't use your equipment anymore, sort of thing.
Yep.
So
agreed.
Tricky subject. I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt to see what happens, but rules bloat. It's a legitimate fear. So hearing that, like saying, I'm right there with you, is like, hearing that is a little bit scary.
Agreed.
One of the goals of V8 was to revise confusing
and appreciate these PowerPoint.
I know, right?
Transition.
That little bird flying away. Cherry on top.
Mechanics. Our plan is to carry this concept forward into V9 to help streamline play and make the rules easier to understand.
Yep, huge positive.
V8 also removed numerous problem spells and effects. We will again continue this trend by removing or updating such spells and effects to more enjoyable versions. Of particular note, we will be reworking all physical touch requirements for verbal spells.
Yeah, so this is one of the things that we see in the playtesting sort of thing, like certain spells just being, you have to be within a certain distance. And I like that a ton. Like, so like, I'm not super worried about like someone touching me or something like that, but I'm always very uncomfortable going and touching someone else sort of thing. Like I don't like it. 9 times out of 10, I'll just like use my pommel to represent the touch, because I don't want other people feeling uncomfortable. Like, you never know who has like some sort of issues with touch, or is a germaphobe or something like that, or the person just has been there since Wednesday and hasn't taken a shower. Like, removing that, yes, there are potential. Yeah, there are some very, very niche potential like loopholes in it, like being able to get someone from behind cover or around cover or weird. But man, that's such a small case that it doesn't even matter. Like, you have to set up situations like that to be able to do it. And if you want to do it, power to you, you're slowing things down anyway. So I'm like very, very happy to see the physical touch requirements. And on the playtesting, it was not an issue.
Good.
Like, it just really wasn't. So I like it a lot.
To be. Yeah, I wouldn't expect that to be an issue.
We're also iterating on V8's magic system to further improve understanding and execution on the battlefield. This will include things like streamlining and simplifying incantations. Reducing exceptions to the rule.
Incredibly huge positive. Incredibly. I hate it does this, except when it does boo 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 boo. Like, get rid of exceptions as much as we can.
Yeah. And even just today at Park, I had 2 conversations like, all right, let's go to the official clarification page to see like what this actual interaction is. For the most part, I think that is like, I'm 95 or 90% in favor of that. I will say there's a lot of people who get a lot of enjoyment about finding these weird, like back in the day, the old Dead Paladin strategy, for example, wasn't as intended, and they did like drop the hammer on it, for example. But I know a lot of people who do enjoy that are not going to get that as much as finding it. But again, 90% in favor of it. Like, it's a positive for the game.
be creative all you want, but we had a new player, for instance. I said, yeah, you're playing barbarian, right? You're immune to crowd control spells. And then in the middle of I forgot to remind them of the 3 or 2 crowd control spells that can actually affect them.
Yeah.
And then they get so upset because they're like, wait, what do you mean? Well, there's this and this and this. Like, it's just make things easier, get rid of exceptions.
Yeah, except it's going to be hard, and any immunities make it difficult. But rewind to that second point, like simplifying the incantations. Oh man, I'm so in favor of that. Like I said earlier, like I mean, it's not as bad as definitely some people, but like I get caught in words. Like occasionally I'll have a stutter and just ruin a spell incantation. And it's like that's never fun. And then that might enable some other people who have like a little bit more of a stutter to enable them to be able to do certain spells and things like that. Especially if you get the chance to practice it beforehand. You don't have to practice 15 spells. You only need to practice 2 or something like that. And like super in favor of that. And to make it like, I'll be honest, like I never will tell. Oh, say what?
I'm saying, please, for the love of all things holy, shorten the heal spell too.
That was what I was saying, man.
It's not worth the time. It's not worth the time to heal anybody.
Yeah, swift heal. That is the heal spell. Swift heal.
That's all it should be. All it should be.
Oh gosh, yeah. And anytime someone like a monk will be like res me or something like that, I'm just like, I'm gonna let you do this because I know it makes you feel good in the game, and like go for it, dude. I'm proud of you. I would have rather just respawn, but sure.
Especially if they're gonna keep it to where there aren't lives per class like there were in V7, right? If the game is going to be balanced around unlimited life games, heal has to be quicker because it's just quicker for me to die and come back in most instances.
Yeah, like as soon as your leg, it's like unless there's a penalty for taking a death, see ya. And even then, we'll think.
Yeah, so, most of the time.
Yeah, the heal spell's rough, and it's those huge outliers is the thing. Like, it's really like the reason why you take like priest and things like that is so that you don't have to worry about doing these full incans. You just have to charge it.
Yep.
So
res heal gum.
Yeah. Yep. So just make things. If you want to add time to something, make it on the charge incant or something like that. But not a super complicated incantation. It's rough. Like
make it to where I have to say something simple a lot of times rather than a long, complex. Yeah.
Yeah. We're on the same page on that one.
Cool.
And providing intuitive and clear rules text.
Positive.
Our goal with this is to decrease the amount of time people spend learning or debating the rules.
Positive.
And increase the amount of time people spend actually playing them.
Positive.